Chapter 4. His nature has developed like a flower. One afternoon, a month later, Dorian Gray was sitting in the little library of Lord Henry's house. It was a very charming room, with olive walls, cream-colored ceiling, and silk Persian carpet. On a little redwood table stood a beautiful statuette. Some large blue china vases were filled with parrot tulips, and through the window came the apricot-colored light of a summer day in London. Lord Henry had not yet come in, so Dorian was looking through a book. It lasted for hours. At last he heard a step outside and the door opened. "How late you are, Harry," he said. "I am afraid it is not Harry, Mr. Gray," answered a woman. "It is only his wife. Can I introduce myself? I know you quite well by your photographs. I think my husband has got 17 of them." "Not 17, Lady Henry." "Well, 18 then, and I saw you with him the other night at the opera." She laughed nervously as she spoke, and watched him with her forget-me-not eyes. She was a curious woman. Her dresses always looked as if they had been designed in a rage and put on in a tempest. She looked like a bird of paradise that had been out all night in the rain. Her name was Victoria, and she had a mania for going to church. "That was at Lohengrin, Lady Henry, I think?" "Yes, it was at dear Lohengrin. I like Wagner's music better than anybody's. It is so loud that one can talk without other people hearing what one says. That is a great advantage, don't you think so, Mr. Gray?" Dorian smiled and shook his head. "I'm afraid I don't think so, Lady Henry. I never talk during music, at least during good music. If one hears bad music, it is one's duty to start talking." "Ah, that is one of Harry's ideas, isn't it, Mr. Gray? I always hear Harry's ideas from his friends. It is the only way I get to know of them. But you must not think I don't like good music. I love it, but I am afraid of it. It makes me too romantic. You have never been to any of my parties, have you, Mr. Gray? You must come. But here is Harry. Harry, I came in to look for you, to ask you something. I forget what it was, and I found Mr. Gray here. We have had such a pleasant chat about music. We have quite the same ideas. No, I think our ideas are quite different, but he has been most pleasant. I am so glad I've seen him." "Hello, my love. So sorry I am late, Dorian." "I am afraid I must be going," said Lady Henry. "I have promised to meet my friend. Goodbye, Mr. Gray. Goodbye, Harry. Perhaps I shall see you at Lady Thornberry's." "I hope so, my dear," said Lord Henry, shutting the door behind her. Then he lit a cigarette and sat down on the sofa. "Never marry a woman with straw-colored hair, Dorian," he said at last. "Why, Harry?" "Because they are so sentimental." "But I like sentimental people." "Never marry at all, Dorian. Men marry because they are tired. Women because they are curious. Both are disappointed. I don't think I will marry sometime. I am too much in love. That is one of your aphorisms. I am putting it into practice, as I do everything that you say." "Who are you in love with?" asked Lord Henry after a pause. "With an actress," said Dorian Gray. "That is a rather commonplace debut." "You would not say so if you saw her, Harry." "Who is she?" "Her name is Sybil Vane." "Never heard of her." "No one has." "People will, some day, however. She is a genius." "My dear boy, no woman is a genius. Women are decorative, but never genius. They never have anything to say, but they say it beautifully." "Harry, how can you?" "My dear Dorian, it is quite true." I am analyzing women at present, so I ought to know. There are only 5 women in London who can give you real conversation. However, tell me about your genius. How long have you known her? About 3 weeks. And where did you meet her? I will tell you, Harry, if you promise not to laugh. When I met you, Harry, you filled me with a wild desire to know everything about life. When I was walking in the park or around the city, I used to look at everyone and wonder, with a mad curiosity, what sort of lives they had. I liked some of them, and I was afraid of others. I could feel poison in the air, a passion for sensations. Well, one evening about 7 o'clock, I was walking around. I felt that there was something special for me in this grey, monstrous London. Soon I lost my way in a labyrinth of dark streets. About 8:30 I saw an old dirty theatre. An ugly old man was standing at the entrance and smoking a cigar. "Have a box, my lord," he said when he saw me, and he took off his hat. There was something about him, Harry, that interested me. He was such a monster. You will laugh at me, I know, but I really went in. To the present day I can't make out why I did so. I see you are laughing. It is horrid of you. I am not laughing, Dorian. At least, I am not laughing at you. Don't be afraid. This is just the beginning. Go on with your story. Well, I found myself seated in a terrible little box and looked around. The gallery and pit were full, but the 2 rows in the stalls were quite empty. I think there was not a person in the dress circle. It was very depressing. I began to wonder what on earth I should do when I saw the playbill. What do you think the play was, Harry? It was Romeo and Juliet. I felt sorry for its great writer. There was a dreadful orchestra. The sounds of a cracked piano nearly drove me away. But at last the curtain went up and the play began. Romeo was a fat old man with a terrible voice and a figure like a beer barrel. Mercutio was almost as bad. But Juliet... Harry, imagine a girl about 17 years of age, with a little flower-like face, a small Greek head with dark brown hair, eyes that were violet wells of passion, lips that were like the petals of a rose. She was the loveliest thing I had ever seen in my life. You said to me once that only beauty could fill your eyes with tears. I tell you, Harry, I could hardly see this girl, because tears came across me. And her voice. I never heard such a voice. It was like music. Harry, I do love her. She is everything to me in life. Night after night I go to see her play. I have seen her in every age and in every costume. Ordinary women, I am not interested in them. They ride in the park in the morning and chatter at tea parties in the afternoon. They have their stereotyped smile and their fashionable manner. There's no mystery in them. But an actress! How different an actress is, Harry. Why didn't you tell me that the only thing worth loving is an actress? Because I have loved many of them, Dorian. Sybil Vane, you know her, I hope. Of course I know her. On the first night I was at the theatre, that ugly old man came into the box after the performance was over. He offered to take me behind the scene and introduce me to her. I was furious with him and told him that Juliet had been dead for hundreds of years. I'm afraid he thought that I was mad or had taken too much champagne. I am not surprised. Then he asked me if I wrote for any of the newspapers. I told him I never even read them. By this time, however, the lights were being put out in the theatre, and I had to go. The next night, of course, I arrived at the place again. When he saw me, he met me with a smile. But when did you first speak to Miss Sybil Vane?